Hello and welcome back to the Kent Morning Show, live on KMTV.
Now, to talk about the latest film headlines, we are going to be joined now by our film club presenter and film expert, Chris DC. Chris, thank you very much for being here today. We've got to start with obviously the biggest film news of the week: passing of Val Kilmer, Hollywood legend, star of films such as Top Gun, obviously played Batman. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad. I remember watching The Snowman in 2017, where it was pretty obvious that it wasn't his voice that was being used in the film, and there was speculation then about his health. And yes, he passed away at the age of 65. Now, when we saw him in Top Gun Maverick as, Iceman returns, it was obvious then because that was incorporated into his role. So we knew that his health wasn't in great form. But when you think of his heyday, he played Jim Morrison in The Doors, Batman. It was of the two Joel Schumacher Batman films, that this one at least got better reviews, but because he only appeared in that one film, that was back in 1995. There were on-set difficulties with the director John Frankenheimer in The Island of Dr. Moreau. Looking back, I wish I'd seen that at the time, because it got such poor reviews. I skipped it at the time, but he was in Heat, so legendary film roles. And just so sad, to see his passing at the age of 65.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those health battles and his voice as well. So in 2021, following his tracheotomy, he worked with software company Sonatic to sort of digitally recreate his voice using AI and archived recordings. Now, there's a long battle with AI when it's good, when it's bad, and when it's taking over. But it allowed him to sort of reappear in these future projects. And although you mentioned in The Snowman you could tell, but it wasn't public, I suppose, what are your thoughts on that integration of his voice? And I propose that it's a good thing that he was able to be in all these films, but that use of AI.
Well, you've made me think as well. I mean, even before AI, but in the same way, Gladiator, Oliver Reed passed away during filming, and so they managed to recapture elements and effectively recreate him so that he appeared in the movie, so he was able to play out his scenes. And when I saw Gladiator on the big screen just a few months ago, I couldn't actually even see the joins. I remember when I first watched it looking for it, because he had only recently died back in 2000. So you're right. I mean, AI in that sense can be used in a very positive way. I mean, also gives these film stars longevity, because there's the other angle. Michael Parkinson, the great chat show host, where there's an AI version of Michael Parkinson doing new interviews, and his son, I think, said that his father would have liked that. I can't comment on that, but I know that there are a lot of people in the industry who are not too happy. In fact, their jobs are being taken away by effectively a digital recreation of somebody who was obviously in his prime in decades past.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting as well when we talk about an actor's voice as well. It's part of their brand, it's part of who they are, and he was someone who had, a very long career. He was one of the youngest to ever be sort of admitted to Juilliard, the famous acting school. So for him to lose his voice in such a way, obviously an interesting choice for him to allow it to continue on in perpetuity. Anyway, we have our next story here, of course, the topic of AI. During the Hollywood strikes, it was seen as sort of public enemy number one, but we're now seeing it coming into Oscar-winning films. Obviously, we're seeing some actors choosing to have their likeness recreated in the future. Do you think we're starting to change our sort of view on AI being used in the industry?
I think we always have to be careful not to sort of say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that the technology has always, I think in Hollywood history, when we had the introduction of widescreen, TV became a threat to Hollywood in the 1950s, so Hollywood upped the ante. And you can also see in the 80s, think of the Terminator films. And it just showed that technology was steering us, and also incorporated into the films, like in Terminator. It's not just that, it's about, the way technology is used in film. Actually, that becomes part of the plot. What will happen in the future, the dystopian future. So this is not a new issue. But I think with AI, you've got actors who might genuinely think, well, our roles are now going to people who can actually make us look younger, make us, I'm thinking of the film with Demi Moore, with Margaret Qualley playing the younger version of herself. I mean, it's not that that's AI, but it just goes to show that this is a real threat. This is a film, an Oscar-nominated film, made about a threat to the industry. There are actors who'll be wondering whether somebody will say, well, actually, you know, we no longer like your voice, or you're past it, so we're going to have a digital version. There's no doubt with the Indiana Jones films, you know, watching Harrison Ford, I mean, he's in his 80s. I mean, he looks spectacular in the latest Indiana Jones film, but, you know, obviously there has to be some element of trickery involved. And of course, you see the younger version of himself, and it looked just like he did in the 1980s. That's technology that achieved that.
And you mention it being on a stage like the Oscars as well. Films like Emilia Perez and The Brutus both used AI in their production, honoured at the Oscars. Does that show a level of acceptance within those sort of the board of the industry, the people that judge it that highly?
Well, there's the irony that with both of those films, there were awards in the acting categories, and no one's disputing that Adrian Brody's performance, for example, was top notch. So it's almost like, yeah, you can have AI used in film, but it doesn't detract from the film as a whole. There are always going to be, you know, effectively it's going to augment something that's already there. And if you've got terrific actors, you had it with the Best Supporting Actress category with Emilia Perez as well, then, you know, you're going to find that this is actually the way that filmmakers are going to, you know, go forward. They're going to say there are aspects that we don't like, there are aspects that do work, and it's that blend. And I think it's going to be difficult for Hollywood entirely to acclimatise to this, and, you know, hence we had the strikes. You know, it's not like, you know, AI is all bad. It's just that used in the right way or the wrong way, it's going to have, I think there are reverberations for decades to come.
I think definitely it's a conversation that's still to come.
Yeah, very quickly on another topic before we move on to some of the other film news. The cast of the new Beatles film has been announced. Barry Keoghan, Paul Mescal, Harris Dickinson and Joseph Quinn play these Fab Four. What do you think about the cast list and their likeness?
Well, I was watching this because Barry Keoghan, I think, is Ringo. Paul Mescal, I think, is Paul. Well, so in that sense, obviously, it does work. I mean, we'll have to see how it works, because I find that with every time. Do you remember when we had the Freddie Mercury biopic? Bohemian Rhapsody was brilliant. And at one point, Sacha Baron Cohen was due to play Freddie Mercury, and I could see the likeness. And then when we had, you know, the actor who won the Oscar, of course, for him, Rami Malek, I thought at the time, oh, you know, how is he going to play it? When I watched the film, I was blown away. I thought I was watching the AI incarnation of Freddie Mercury. No, it was so good. So, and it's Sir Sam Mendes, who's directing this. So he's going to make sure that this is a film that will, you know, it has to stand the test of time, because no one's really done a film of the Beatles. We had a film about the Lost Beatles, the fifth Beatle, that was made in the early 90s, but actually having a film about the Fab Four themselves. This is serious work. So if the cast doesn't work, you know, the project is not going to get off the ground.
Yeah, there's 4 films being released for each member of the Beatles. It's being described as the first bingeable theatrical experience. It's something we see a lot with television, that you put on a series, and whoops, accidentally you've spent 10 hours watching 10 episodes. Could this be translating into films as well? Are they sort of merging together?
Well, I saw this with a film about Jesus, which is coming out over Easter, and it's in 3 parts. So it's a cinematic experience. It's almost like with TV. You have to watch parts 1, 2 and 3 on the big screen. Right. So I think that it's almost replicating that Netflix experience.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. The films are being sent straight to streaming platforms rather than any sort of theatrical release. I suppose, how does that set films apart when you have these big build-ups? You see them on the posters, you see them, and it's sort of that classic release in the cinema. No doubt you'd be there watching it if it wasn't, but straight to the streaming platform.
Well, this has happened to me, because the Curzon, for example, they often put Netflix films, and they're really, you know, films that people are raving about, but you can watch them on Netflix, but they're also showing them in the cinema. I remember the Lady Chatterley's Lover recent film, and, you know, it's almost like released at the cinema a week before its Netflix release. But I'm in the cinema, often an empty cinema, and the Knives Out film, the sequel, a good example, it had a 1-week theatrical release, and the audiences were packed, but then it went straight to streaming. So I think it just goes to show that, like in the 1950s with VistaVision, and, you know, the way that widescreen was a way of making people think, you know, don't watch your films at home on TV, go to the cinema. I think that this blend of is the way forward, because TV is, I think, offering an experience which cinema certainly since lockdown is not able to recapture its glory days.
Well, I'll always be a big fan of the big screen, getting the full experience, getting your popcorn and all of it. Well, one of those films that's coming out soon, we were talking a bit about digital recreations earlier, is the Minecraft movie. It's the latest in the instalment of these sort of pop culture icons, institutions that have been turned into a movie. It's faced a lot of criticism, though, about its animated characters, the fact that it's not got the exact sort of likeness as the original game, but maybe it's to capture a new audience, a new young audience. I know my nephew is my 5-year-old nephew is very excited about the Minecraft movie. What's your general thoughts?
Well, my twin sons as well, the same, because I took them to see Snow White on the weekend, and they said, it's fine, but we want to see Minecraft. Yeah. So, no, this has its demographic. But it makes me think of, I remember going to see Jumanji in the 90s, and I've seen the more recent iterations as well, and going to see, I remember it was the February half term, would have been like 1996, and a packed audience of 10-year-olds, and so there is this causal link between video games and films. I remember also, sometimes Lara Croft, another one, people say, oh, it's not strictly based on the game character, but it shouldn't be and it mustn't be, because if you, it's like with the Da Vinci Code or something, if you just replicate the book, the source material, you just get a pale imitation of what you've got. There has to be something distinctive and original, which is why often these films have the 4DX experience or the 3D experience, often the two of those combined, in order to just make it a bit more distinctive that you wouldn't get at home. Yeah.
Well, you have to bring in a review, get your boys to write down a few notes, bring it in to us next week, tell us what you think.
I do try to get my children to write reviews and they say, no, no, no.
leave it to Dan, that one. All right, Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Time for a very short break now. See you in a few minutes.
See you soon.